live hopefully in 1988, and have a great 88.
Music and Culture, the 88 podcast, with yours truly, Wayne Anthony. Welcome to the 88 podcast with yours truly, Wayne Anthony. And on today's show, we've got a very special guest. He's the inventor of an infamous board game. It was called Rave. Not many people got to see it or play it. So it's a real pleasure to have on the show Patrick Treloar from WoW Enterprises. How you doing, Sam?
Hiya.
It's good. It's good to speak to you, mate. It's good to actually put a face behind the game, behind the whole concept, because there'll be people that won't actually know what we're talking about, but there's a great many people who do actually know what we're talking about. And it's about a board game that was called Rave. And to be fair, I had a couple of copies of it myself, you know? And I'll tell you a couple of stories about it as we get in. But tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your background and what you're about today, mate.
My background had most influence on the Rave game was I worked in television graphics, computer graphics, which was really kind of new type thing in those days. And I've been kind of like doing various kind of like graphics and web type things ever since. Most recently, though, I've spent practically the whole of the last 3 years in Morocco.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. There was a kind of, I don't know, it was like kind of an escape trip, really, when Brexit and all that kind of started to kind of bite in. And I just decided to skip across to somewhere, a completely different culture. And so that's what I've been doing.
Cool. Do you know Cyrus?
Cyrus, I do know the name. I do know.
Okay, because he lives over there as well.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
I do know the name. I know Cyrus. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I used to work with him on LSD magazine.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, that's on another tip.
Yeah.
So, mate, you spent the last 3 years out in Morocco. It's lovely and warm. You've come back. It's freezing cold.
Yeah. Tell me.
Locked down. So,
Yeah.
but let's talk about more fun times, mate. So, how did the whole board game? Because here's the thing, you know, the whole. Well, let's go back. Actually, tell us a little bit about your intro to Acid House and like perhaps Raven.
Oh right. Okay. Well, well, the whole kind of ecstasy thing happened for me before Acid House had happened. Somebody gave us some to go. We were going on a holiday to Switzerland, and so that's where I had my kind of initiation in the mountains in Switzerland, and it was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was just breathtaking. What happened that day, I still can't credit it, to be quite honest. But when I got back, we started hearing about this kind of thing that was taking over the clubs, and I thought, no, surely it cannot be, because there's two things I can't think of more different, right? Well, what it was the difference between absolute sanity and absolute madness.
Yeah.
Right. But when I did go out, it's kind of like 87, I suppose, and I went to Shum and to Heaven, you know, the thing they used to do,
Spectrum
and all that kind of stuff. It was no doubt whatsoever that everything fitted in like very, very well. 120 beats per minute. Everybody was discovering this kind of camaraderie that just had never been there before, you know. In fact, one of the things I've been meaning to mention, thinking over the last couple of days, you did a thing for the movie, didn't you? Where you actually played the game.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you that story.
Yeah.
It was actually I actually got what it was. I mean, do you know the story? Yeah, you know bits of it. I can't remember if I told you back then.
No. I know bits of it. You had this. It's about this policeman that I was.
Yeah, so I got a phone call one morning, and it was from Gordon Mason, and he was a filmmaker who's made the film. They Call It Acid. So he called me up and he said, "Hey Wayne," he said, "how you doing?" Blah blah. He said, "Do you know the police commander, Ken Tappenden?" And I said, "Well, of course I do. He's the head of the police pay party unit." He said, "Yeah." He said, "That's right." He said, "You know the Rave game, the board game, the Rave game?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, Ken Tappender's challenged you to a game of Rave." I was like, "No way." I was like, "Of course I'll do it." And then what Gordon told me later was that he then called he then called Ken Tappenden and said to him, "You know, yeah, do you know Wayne Anthony? Wayne Anthony's challenged you to give a game of Rave, you know?"
Yeah.
And we went and we filmed it. He was filming it for the film They Call It Acid. And he was such a good sport, Kenneth Tappenden. I mean, he was a police commander. He was the head of the police pay party unit. And he wore his police uniform.
Yeah. I did. I saw the clip.
We sat in that darkened room, you know, and he said to me, he was such a good sport because he said, you know, "I don't mind losing. We can fix it so we lose." I was like, "No, don't be silly. Whoever loses, loses," you know. And we just sat there. And it went on. I mean, there's only a few seconds in the film, but I think the game might have went on for a half hour. We played the whole full game.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, we played the whole game until I won. And then in between, we were talking about, you know, the concepts and the principles of the game and how that related to real life. So that was a big moment, you know.
Well, the reason I mentioned him, because if I'm not mistaken, he is the same police officer that that when the press was all going mad, they were all over it, you know, rave parties happening, blah 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 blah. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. Is an absolute hero of mine, actually, because he was actually interviewed, and he said, "Well, you know, we found out, we managed to track down where this big thing was happening, and there's so many kids there, and blah 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 blah." And he said, "The thing is," he said, "about my boys," he said, "they're trained. They can smell trouble as soon as the doors are open." And the reporter said, "So they opened the doors and you could smell the trouble, yes?" And he goes, "No." No, actually, quite the opposite. These kids, they were just all having a good time. And by George, were they having a good time? And then I don't know who the government was that was in at the time, but they got absolutely. And then, of course, we got the great Rupert Murdoch kind of, you know, that this country has been suffering under for such a long time.
Yeah.
It seems such a shame. But this is another thing about being in Morocco. You know, you just don't see that kind of, you don't live in that Murdoch reality, which kind of washes over everything. And so the next thing is, you know, the sun. Well, there was that classic thing, wasn't it?
I think it was definitely him. Getting back to the policeman, I think that was definitely him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy.
Because that's one of the reasons why I like he became a bit of a hero for me as well, because he appeared in a few different documentaries and he was just coming out and saying, "Look, what we did was wrong. You know, we handled it completely the wrong way. It was being sensationalized in the press and we were the ones that forced them underground." But it was also saying that I wish I had those boys as my lieutenants. He said that in a documentary. He said, "I wish I had those boys as my lieutenants because they could shift thousands of people from one place to another in a matter of hours. And he said, the police and the army can't do that today.
Yeah.
That's what he said, you know. So I'm like,
Yeah.
this guy's a hero.
So it just goes to show, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was that classic thing in the Sun of 1 week they were selling Acid House T-shirts in the Sun, and then the next week they were kind of, you know, there's that classic thing of the Grim Reaper, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
This cartoon and
The
this kind of
smiley
Grim
face.
Reaper,
Yeah.
and kind of like, yeah, the smiley faces.
Welcome to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That was the thing. You're exactly right, because it was exactly that. On 1 week, it was buy our Acid House T-shirts, because they were selling T-shirts for £4.50. They had a little section dedicated to the lingo, so they was telling people how to speak. There was another section telling people how to dance. You know?
oh God, really?
And then the very next week, it
bricks.
was, yeah, exactly. And then the very next week, it was terror.
I know, it's absolutely crazy. Yeah, I mean, he became like I think it was partly, there was a sweet spot, you know, when the Rave thing was happening. And the story about how the Rave game happened is a classic story, really. But to kind of cut to the chase, it was Christmas Eve, and I went out to the WAG club and got totally shit-faced, totally. And I was kind of separated from my son's mum, so I was being a bad dad, and not a good Santa. And but it was a night I will never, well, you know, like these nights that you will never forget. And we had this kind of like regular thing every Christmas Day. We would go to a mutual friend's place, so that it wasn't my family, it wasn't her family. It was a mutual friend. She always did a really good spread. I carved the turkey, and we had our kind of like family kind of Christmas there. And I was literally standing there, kind of like carving the turkey, and Hazel said, we've got to come up with some idea for a board game for this art, these evening classes that I'm doing. You got any ideas? And I just said, you start with 2 E's, 50 quid in a flyer, and you've got to get to a rave before it gets busted without getting busted yourself. You call it Rave. And I just looked at everybody, and they all looked away. So don't look at me. And I thought, you know, and that's where the idea was born. And that's
wow, mate, excellent. It's one of those little moments that comes out of the blue.
Yeah, very much so. But that kind of, it was born of that real sweet spot, because we all, there's a whole bunch of things which are very different from what happened after the clampdown, that I bracket them all together. One, which we've already mentioned, the fact that it was a game. You know, it was a game. Anyone that hadn't done it wouldn't realize it, but anyone that had done it would realize it was a game. The police were after you. They were playing the game. They were trying to crack the codes before you did. And then when they inevitably did turn up, you know, and the whole goal was that the party would be happening so big that it would be inviting a riot to try to close it down. And so they when they did turn up, then there was a whole bunch of people who were briefed, you know, about kind of like working with the police, you know, and taking care of them, making their job as easy as it could be, and all of this stuff. And then they stood back and they watched, and then that famous Sun headline: "Police stand back and watch while our children kill themselves." I think it said
And
stuff
worse.
like that. Yeah. And there's another guy that you probably, I'm pretty sure you would have heard of, if only because of his fantastic name. He comes from the same era, and I was listening to him doing a kind of Zoom thing the other day, and his name is Dr. Professor David Nutt.
That's a long one. I'm sure I've heard the name.
Well, yeah, Professor Nutt from oh God. Which university is it? It's in central London.
Westminster?
No. It begins with I. Anyway, he was the drug czar.
Okay. Wow.
And he was brought in by the Tory government to be a drug czar, imperial.
Yes, right? Yeah.
And it was all big hoo-ha. We've got a drug czar. We're going to stamp out this evil menace. Blah 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 blah. And he then infamously submitted his report, which said that alcohol was the most dangerous drug in our society at the moment, responsible for more deaths than anything else, directly or indirectly, and that ecstasy was safer than riding a horse.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
And they sacked him.
I remember that.
And he now is, I don't know how well you've been kind of following things, but we're now on the cusp of a kind of like psychedelic renaissance. You probably know that. In America, they've been following
it. Building, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ayahuasca, iboga.
Yeah. And he, excuse me, he is our he doesn't work for the government anymore, but he is doing a lot of studies at Imperial with volunteers and double-blind test studies. And he's a really straight guy.
That is interesting.
He's got a little moustache, bald head. I mean, he looks like the absolute typical government advisor, kind of like anarchy type guy. And he was in a Zoom meeting not that long ago, and they're talking about how things had changed. And well, MDMA is being in the process of being legalized around the world, mainly for PTSD and for relationship difficulties and things like that. There's one guy in England, in Ben Senna in Bristol, that's actually legally now been granted a license to do MDMA therapy. So
wow, that's a big step for England.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I mean, this is the classic thing about Dr. David Nutt. All the way through this interview with him, he would come up with these different things, scientific research here and what they've discovered there, and working with this university over here and combining their studies on this and hoping to do that. But unfortunately, it has to be said, he came forward. There were quite a lot of times when he would be left just to ramble a little bit on his own, and he always came up with the same thing. He said, Of course, yes, and it's all looking very exciting now, and it's been 30 years in the offing, and everything's been prepared. But I don't really see it happening in this country. You don't get anyone that's. I have worked with the government. No one has worked closer with the government than I have. I know what working with the government is like in this country. They're just. The way he described, he said basically it's just a system where they have bullies at school. The biggest bullies end up going to the best schools, and everyone thinks that they should be bullied by them anyway. Anywhere else in the world, they'd be rioting in the streets, you know.
Sure.
So the upside of that, though, really is that you know, I think we can kind of like start seeing in the next 4 or 5 years all around the world. There's going to be it's not going to be just like legal to take it at raves, but you know, literally.
Sure, for therapy and counselling.
Yeah.
Well, that's the big leap, isn't it? That's the massive leap. So it's like yourself, when it's been decriminalised in many European countries as well. And what we're talking about here is we're not saying, you know, it's being decriminalised for people to use at raves, but the fact that it is being criminalized in certain countries, it means a lot of these doctors and a lot of researchers, they can't actually use MDMA in their research because it's illegal, isn't it? So
yeah.
So it's not just about recreational stuff.
Now they're calling it a breakthrough therapy.
Yeah, incredible, huh?
Yeah, they said the last time they called anything a breakthrough therapy was Prozac, but they said this is just, you know, 10 times. You know, you're talking about a person having one session.
Sure.
You know, and then coming out and saying, I've never seen it this way before.
That's all I needed, one session. How many did you need?
Well, I told you about that time when I went to Switzerland. My God, I couldn't believe it. I just walking around thinking, this isn't cocaine. This is very, very, very different.
Very different.
Yeah, so that's how the Rave game was born.
So tell us about, for people that don't actually know, So what was the whole premise of the actual game?
Well, I mean, I've got
have you got one there? Excellent.
Yeah, there's the actual kind of
there's one on eBay right now for 99 quid.
Right, they do tend to go for that kind of price.
Mate, I sold one for 350 quid.
Really?
In like 2007.
Wow.
350 quid.
Wow. Well, like I said, the premise of it was you start with 2 E's, 50 quid and a flyer. You got to get to a rave before it gets busted without getting busted yourself. I will say something actually about the rave game. I didn't think anybody was ever going to, you know, didn't think anybody would back it or anything like that. And I went off and I found a game designer who came up with a game that was, I couldn't play it, basically. And then someone came along and said, I'll put money into it. We'll do it. I thought, oh, shit. My God.
It's becoming real.
Yeah. But what I decided on, well, just two or three things that if I'd known, you know, it would have been different. None of us knew anything about producing a board game.
Sure, that was new. And no one even thought about producing board games. You look up at Monopoly. Who were the people that made Monopoly?
Warrington? I know. I just thought it was such an insane idea. I thought it'd be just. Of course, it's like an ultimate chill out thing. You come home and kind of like, you know, everybody, you know, someone puts some breakfast on and you kind of like lying in a spliff, you kind of like lying, something to do after you finish the night and all that.
Sure, mate.
And we did a limited edition run, which is the one that you saw in my hands. Which
that was the one with the poster, was it?
Yeah, it's got a poster in it. It had just a minute.
That's the one I had. That's the one I sold for 350. The one with a poster.
Wow, yeah, well, that's the rare one because it's got a cassette, which is mixed by Alex Patterson.
Go on.
And the posters in here underneath everything. Just let me get it out. Yeah. I mean,
exactly. Tell us about all those different little components you got in there.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it didn't make any difference how much I worked on it. I'd never written any rules or anything like this. Basically,
you were a rule breaker up to this point.
Well, yes, but basically, it got to a certain point. Now, this was something like March 1990, I think it was, that Shane had come forward as my business partner. And there's the poster.
Excellent. Look, there's the poster.
Yeah. Designed by Jamie Hewlett, a Tank Girl, the Gorillas, all that kind of stuff. And what I decided was, I thought, if I can't fucking play this game, I'm going to make sure it's the most beautiful game that's ever been produced.
Sure.
So what I did was then I got in touch with the people I used to work for in a video editing suite. And I went down and rented their graphics machines and did all of the flyers.
Excellent. Because that's another thing. Part of the game is there's loads of flyers and.
Yeah, well, the point.
Sorry, go on, show us them again. Sorry, mate. I was talking and the screen came up.
Something about all these. There's something about these flyers. There's something about the cassette that I just showed you. I haven't got particularly good glasses at the moment, so I won't be able to read it. But believe it or not, every single flyer, if you look at it, it's got it's got a wonky E on the end. This one has got a little planet kind of going around the E.
There. Oh yeah, I got it.
Hearts. There, the E has got two little hearts on it. So it's full of subliminal messages. I wanted it so that if someone was looking at it and they're tripped out of the skull, they would go, have you noticed that every single one of these it's done something funny to the E?
Excellent. It's those small details, mate.
Yeah, so there's like another one there. And then Eternity 2, there's a little thing above the E on there. So that was that. And the cassette, wow. I mean, what I wrote, talk about, above and beyond the Call of Duty. I've got stuff actually written on the back of the cassette. It says, recorded in glorious X-Surround. And then, yeah, and it says something about how to best listen to this cassette. And it says something like getting a tinfoil hat and a piece of lemon, and then to be looking at a television tuned between two different channels with the headphones on, squeeze on the lemon, and whammo! You are listening to glorious X-Surround.
Great idea, mate. It's a great idea, and it's very much in the spirit of the moment.
Yeah, X-Surround. There's all the small print. So much effort went into all that kind of stuff. But really, we were kind of like we're just getting that kind of like getting the basic idea kind of like on the table in about March. It was 1990, and the aim was to get it in the game stores by
Christmas, I imagine.
But it wasn't until something like September that we realized that we weren't doing it the way it should be done at all. The way you do it in the board game industry is you get your mock-up, you get your pre-production models, and you go along to the British Toy and Hobby Fair at Earl's Court in February.
Okay.
A month before we even met, right? And then they would take all of the orders for Christmas, and then you would work all the way through summer. You get everything all ready, all the distribution, and be out in the shops in September, and blah, 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 blah. And people that worked in the board game industry just, they were totally different, obviously, from the kids that bought the game. But almost to a man, they would just stop dead in their tracks and they say, I can't believe you did this. I said, I can't believe you did what? You actually brought this out in the shops 6 months after you started production. I said, yeah, that's right. How the hell did you do that? And it was insane. Really, really difficult. But
for sure. But you was just on that wave of emotion coming out of this whole, like it was a new change for everybody, wasn't it?
The thing you've got to remember as well is that, of course, there was this sense of urgency because by the time it was like 1990, everybody was going to, we were kind of going to parties and stuff in the kind of, it was kind of like, I can't believe it, they're still doing them. You know, I wonder how much longer it's going to last. You know, people will say, well, you know, I'll give it another 3 months, you know, it's going to be over. And we was kind of like, we've got to get this into the shops for next Christmas. Are anybody even going to be raving at Christmas time?
Imagine. Imagine that.
You know,
30 years later.
Yeah. So there was all of that. Then I think one of my proudest days was I had to go up to Virgin to deliver some boxes, some board games, and I was going up the tube station at Tottenham Court Road, and two kids. I was just going up the escalator, and two kids came up to me and said, "Excuse me, mate, can we buy one of those? Would you sign it for us now?" And that's the first time I did an autograph on the Rave game. And
excellent, at Virgin Megastore.
Going up the escalator at Tottenham Court Road tube station. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I had to get to Virgin. So I'm sorry, but you're too short. We sold 2 on the way up. But
excellent.
Yes.
And so you made the game, and before you made the game, or after you made the game, did you like approach like board making?
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing is that my partner Shane, he was a salesman, and a typical, you know. The other thing is that this was the days of the yuppie. He was a really sweet guy, but I mean, a lot of ravers were yuppies. You know, they're kind of like, you know, they had been at least until they take their first pill, and suddenly they're gonna fuck the suit, mate. I can put on a t-shirt and let's fucking go for it. Totally, mate. But yeah, we worked on it full time. My girlfriend Sophia, she was like the company secretary. There's many yarns. The thing about Sophia actually was that this is where I realized we were going really wrong. She's very bright button, Sophia, and when you are developing a board game, you have to do this thing called play testing. So you sit down, you say, okay, well, we've got this rule. We've got to try this rule out in particular this evening and see if we can break it, see if it will hold up. And so you play test a lot of work, concentration. And then I suddenly looked at Sophia and I said, you've got photographic memory. Out. And threw her out of the testing. And after that point, we realized, yeah, Sophia was winning every time. Yeah, she was winning every time. She's not a typical player at all. She's not in the slightest bit typical in any shape, size, or form. She's win. If I can do it, you can. So there was that. And then there was the inevitable showdowns. At a certain point, Shane, they say that every business goes through this kind of valley of death type thing, when all of your outgoings have gone out and nothing has come in, and you're treading water, you're technically bust. And
bit like now.
Yeah,
like now.
Yeah. And Shane was really feeling the pinch at this particular time. And his mum, who was a very successful woman in her own right, she kept on saying to him, it's all fair enough, but I know people that work in the board game industry. For God's sake, you must have these consultants, they're professionals. And eventually I caved in. I said, no one is more professional than we are. We know our market. They don't know anything about this whatsoever. And there was a company called Game. They still exist. I don't know if they do. Game Limited is what it says on the business card. But they had these shops all over the UK called Game, and this guy came. He came in as a consultant, and they charged us a fortune. They really milked us dry. And this guy, he had a real kind of like red nose from the amount of alcohol that he had drunk during his life. He was an Irish guy. And I'll never forget, he came in and he sat down the other side of the desk. I had a particularly cool pair of leather trousers, which I wore all the time in those days. And Sophia called me over and says, you've got to have a meeting with Shane's guy. So I sat back with my feet up on the desk like this, crossed, and just rocking back in my chair like this. And this guy says, I don't want no bad vibes about this game. I don't want any bad vibes. This has got to be a good, clean, healthy game. And I said, well, I think you don't understand who our true market is. And he said, what's that then? I said, the recreational drug market. And then he just about to explode. And then Sophia comes over, she whispers in my ear, got a phone call. So I left the meeting, go to this phone call. And there's this guy, Jimmy James, we'll say he was called, from Game Limited. And he says, is that Patrick Treloar from the Rave game? I said, yeah, it is. And he said, where can I get these fucking games?
Oh, brilliant.
The kids are all coming in here day after day after day. it's September. They're meant to be in the shops. Where can I get one of these bloody games? And I said, well, we've got a guy here right now, and he's about to hold production on the whole thing because he says the size of our boxes isn't a high enough perceived value. And he says, if they're not shit on a stick, I want 2 gross.
Excellent.
So I went back into the meeting, put my feet back up on the table, and looked across at him and said, have you ever heard of Jimmy James from Game Limited? Oh, yes, he's a drinking buddy of mine. I know him well. Oh, yes, we've been working together with all this kind of stuff. I said, he said, if it isn't shit on a stick, he wants 2 gross.
Fantastic.
And we eventually fought these guys off, but they took a lot of money out of the company. They made things very, very difficult for us. But you know, those are kind of precious memories which like stay with you forever. You know.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about all the different components and stuff, because there's little different components, isn't there? You got your tape, you got your flyers.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, what you've got is, let me just unpack this a little bit. You have to excuse me. I've got a bit of a cold. Keep blowing my nose.
I mean, sorry, I'm really happy that you did this podcast because I know you're suffering with a cold. So thanks for being on, mate.
Yeah. So you've got the board, which I'll just take out from here just a minute. The board is the only thing I didn't design. That was what I was lumbered with, was the fact that, you know, we didn't have time to do a redesign. The guy that actually designed the board, it wasn't what I wanted. And I did actually redesign it later. I was hoping to bring out a remixed version of the game.
Sure.
But
and I imagine you would have called it the remix version.
Yeah.
I imagine you would have called it that as well.
Oh, it was going to be called that, the remix.
Yeah.
But this is the original kind of like board.
Yeah, there's the board game.
With Trip City in the middle. And these are all clubs. These Dayglow things around there. And basically you start at a club with 1 flyer, £50, and 2 E's, basically. Now the E's,
but you didn't call them E's, you called them something else, didn't you?
Yeah, energy tokens. But they had a great big E on them. So, I mean,
yeah, you got some there. Yeah,
I've got, yeah, they're all here. So then you would go out to on the back of the flyers there were clues, and they would tell you to first of all go to a garage, and when you got to a garage, that was like a meeting point. And then you get another clue as to where to go next. And then you would gradually follow these things around. And then, as you were playing, you had these separate cards called vibe cards, which are basically what's going on out there. This one says diversion. Move or place a diversion counter to a square of your choice. Peace pipe, typical. Peace pipe, turn on local constabulary, retain until busted, and gain 5 E's at police cell.
Well, Sam. He wasn't holding back.
No. Police cars with dogs at Puffett Moor. This is the kind of all of the place names. Helicopter. So this would actually move the police marker to a place called Puffett Moor, which is on the board. If you were at Puffett Moor, you were busted.
Go on.
But if they landed next to you, you're in the paranoia zone. You just have to throw your E's away, but you wouldn't get busted. That was the kind of logic. Good karma.
And it was a man. It was like a little figure that you moved around the board as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's difficult putting it all to pieces because it was all kind of like in his components. And I had a few things deliberately put in to make it a bit more kind of like, well, like this one. Good karma, hug to the right, £15 to each player when done. So if you got that one, the person to the right, you give them a hug, you both get 15 quid.
Nice.
So
very nice. Interactive as well, huh?
Yeah. Flashback, mime and occupation or favorite pastime from a previous lifetime before throwing the dice. Player who guesses correctly gets 1E. Venetian, this is a drug reference. Venetian mind meld tablet. Change position. All flyers and money, energies, pieces, the lot, with the player to your right for 4 moves. So that meant that you become the player to your right for 4 moves, and then a total mind fuck actually to try to play that one. And then
cool, man.
The stash card. Now there was 2 lots of stashes. Just a minute. There's stash meaning money and stash meaning drugs. And I was just saying to someone the other day, actually, about this. My proudest achievement with the Rave game was quite humble, really, I suppose. But I must admit, it gave me a real thrill. I had these stash bags. They're the same bags as were they're manufactured by the same company that made Barclays money bags, coin bags. So I thought, now we've really got, this is huge.
Your corporate.
Yeah, the establishment. So that was.
They were really cool. But what's inside it? What's inside it?
Oh, what's inside it is that's a bit. Here's a more clear. That's what the stash bag mirrored. I think.
Very impressive, mate. Very impressive. From the same company that actually made them for the bank.
Yeah. And this is another thing as well, of course, practicalities. We dreamed of a time when we'd have enough money in the bank to actually have plastic pieces, but we couldn't afford it at this stage. So these are the plain pieces.
Very cool.
Little dancing man. Put in a little stand, which just moves around. That's a diversion counter, so you could put that down somewhere and divert to play around. And these, they're like little speakers. That means you're at a rave. And once you've got those, once you're playing those, you're not playing the vibe cards anymore. You're at a rave, and the aim is to keep going long enough to get 120 beats per minute 3 times. And these are your dance cards, and most of them had beats per minute, like that one is 60 beats per minute. Rocking power buzz, sex in field, throw dice again.
What's that?
Sex in field, even number with condom, gain 2 energies, odd number without condom, lose 2 energies.
Edgy.
Or miss a turn out if miss a turn if out of energies. What other things we've got? Caffeine tablets, been ripped off, lose up to 2 E's, 20 beats per minute. Rave cancelled, invasion of beer heads, remove site marker and buy another flyer. Nausea, take a walk, 60 beats per minute. Rottweiler around your leg, lose up to 2 energies, 40 beats per minute. So these are the cards you actually played when you're dancing.
Yeah, because you had two
Rave.
sets of cards, didn't you? You had what you just showed before, vibe cards, and these were the what
Vibe
cards?
cards were kind of like, what's going on out there? What's
Yeah.
the vibe? Where are the police? What are the road conditions? Who are you traveling with? What kind of lunatics have you managed to pull in on all this? And then when you actually get to the rave, then you start playing for this combination. So 2 sets of cards, if they added up to 120 beats per minute, you got a piece of the thing called a triptych. And if you got 3 pieces, you won the game, basically. So that's the kind of
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And how about the graphics? And who did all those graphics?
Well, I did nearly all of them. The actual board, the actual box was designed by a mate of mine, a guy called Greg Sams, who's a real old hippie guy, and he had about the only company in the UK that actually did fractal designs.
Nice cover. Very nice.
The logo was done by these designers that were working for us, working with us. But it got to a certain stage, and I just said, look, get me an Apple Macintosh. These things have only just come out. Get me an Apple Macintosh and I'll design the whole thing myself. And Shane would never do it. It was like such a high risk thing, you know, the idea of doing this on a computer struck him as being totally impossible. So what I did was, like I said, I designed all of the flyers on a video graphics machine. These were had to go out and rent out, go to a desktop publishing place, design each of those.
Cool.
Individually. And then there's, you know, the money, everything. All had to be. I actually did make a conscious. I don't know whether I said this earlier on, but I was really frustrated that we had such a short amount of time. If I had another year, I would have totally reinvented the game from scratch. But we didn't have that time. And I made a conscious decision at some stage. I just said, I don't know about being able to play this game, but I'm going to make it the most beautiful board game ever made.
Yeah.
And one night when we'd been playing, and I went out to heaven or something that night, and I came back home and I was tripping basically, and walked in and saw the board all laid out halfway through a game in the living room, and I just looked at it and I just said, "You've done it,
cracked it."
Yeah, it looks.
Well, you had.
It looks beautiful.
It's a beautiful looking game. And for what it is, it was an amazing achievement. And like you said, to have it from concept to the finished product in such a small amount of time.
Yeah. Oh,
and then it disappeared in like just as quickly as well.
Oh man, that's another story altogether. I mean, the thing is, we're just putting our feet up, really, and like, oh fucking hell, when's it going to be Christmas? Next Wednesday. Oh God, I can't wait. And then, you know, Monday or Tuesday night, the last board games go out, and then it's just chill out, and it's just Christmas, and just relaxing and kind of like thinking about not thinking.
This is
then,
Christmas 91.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, no, it was Christmas 90. It was 91, I think, that we got a phone call. It was on a Monday afternoon. And it was this woman at Virgin. And she said, can I talk to Patrick, please? And put me through to me. Patrick, can you take all the games back? I said, what? Why? She said, we've just had Richard. Oh God, bad vibes. Get ready for it. Leia Betts had just died.
Oh,
Okay.
dear. Oh dear.
And she said, a Labour MP, would you believe, Patrick, phoned up Richard yesterday in the middle of his Sunday lunch, Patrick, and said, why are you selling board games that kill children?
Oh my word. You're never going to survive that.
And I said, oh, come on, you know that, there's this game about murdering people, there's this game about war, there's this game about this, there's this game about that. And she said, Patrick, Richard is one of the richest and most charismatic people in the world. Do you think he's really going to have his Sunday lunch ruined by a maverick, self-financed game designer, And that was it. It was just like bang. And so we had to do that. And then
that must have been a real shock.
It was totally not what you wanted to hear.
No. And I imagine that was a lot of units, was it?
Oh, and it wasn't just Virgin. I mean, believe it or not, I mean, I say that I'm so proud that we had those bank bags made by Barclays. But the other guys, I mean, there was Shane, there was this other young kid who's like our kind of like main salesman. And there was Sophia and another guy as well. I mean, these guys really prided themselves. We couldn't believe that we're getting away with it. It was a caper. We thought it was the ultimate kind of caper. We got these games into WH Smiths, got them into Game Limited, got them into Woolworths.
That's incredible, mate.
Yeah, they were everywhere. And the grapevine, all the major buyers from every company all know each other, Sure. And it was literally, it was like watching a deck of cards, a house of cards just collapsing.
Oh my word.
In 2 or 3 days.
A domino effect.
It was, I'm sorry, but we can't send a van to pick up your games yet. We're sending our van out to pick up games from so and so and so, and we won't. And it was literally the complete opposite of what had happened at Christmas, which had been like, we've got to get these games out, we've got to get them delivered, we've got to get them delivered, we've got to get them delivered. Now it's like, we've got to get them back, we've got to get them back, we've got to get them back, we've got to get them back. And Shane, bless his heart, he basically turned around to me at one stage and he said, you were right. You said that if we, had an Apple Macintosh, we could have saved a fortune. And I paid for those consultants and they cost us so much money, Patrick. I'm washing my hands of it. You can have the whole thing. And then, let me think, then this was like mid-January, And of course, as I told you at the beginning of the interview, the British Toy and Hobby Fair was in February, right? And I thought, right, well, I've got all these games. It's just me and Sophia now, just an army of two.
And I imagine the games are they in the garage at home or something now?
Well, I mean, I've got a few myself, 2 or 3, but they're out there. I mean,
No, I mean back then when you went and picked them all,
yeah, I mean,
collected them.
it was like, oh God. I mean, they were with the printers, but they were, the printers were saying, when do you want the delivery of the next batch? And we were saying, just hold on. We've got our vans going out, getting the games out of the shops and back to us.
Nightmare.
So I contacted the British Toy and Hobby Fair and said, introduced myself and told them about, and said, we would like to have a stand. How much would it cost? And they said, we're not going to let you have a stand. They said, we've heard about this game and you're not allowed. You're banned. So what we did then was, I wish I had one of these. I had a big big broad sheet. It was like, like a twice the size of this box, basically, like a newspaper broadsheet, and
like
it says something like Game World rocked by Acid House board game or something like this.
Wow, dude, awesome. Awesome,
yeah.
dude.
And then more and more of this kind of like cryptic stuff, about these nutcases that are being. Oh yeah, we claimed that the game was actually invented by a guy called BP Wow, and that we said that he lived in Lhasa in Tibet.
Excellent.
And the son got onto us and said, what is about this BP Wow then? He must be. I said, oh, please don't talk to us about him. He just comes along with these mad ideas. We're the ones that have got to do it all. And then he goes and flies back off to Tibet again, right? They said, when's he coming again? I said, oh, you'll be able to catch him. He'll be coming in Heathrow 4 o'clock on Saturday morning. And they all turned up at Heathrow at 4 o'clock in the morning. But what we did was we actually went along to the British Toy and Hobby Fair and squatted a stand there, and eventually got physically thrown out of the place.
It's quality that you set one up though.
Well, no, we squatted it. They didn't know that we did it. We found an empty stand. We set it all up. We got all the kind of buntings and all this kind of stuff up, and we were taking orders, And then I was walking along at some stage, and I heard this voice behind me go, "There he is. Who? Him? Rave." And then these guys
the Acid King.
And they were literally kind of marching, frog stepping me out, and me kind of like going out. That game promotes war. That game promotes murder. That game like this. And there's lots of stories and things like that to do with the game, but. Yes, so that's the historical part of it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how many units did you have to collect?
Jesus.
I mean, I imagine you was on par to do quite well with that game because everyone was talking about it, wasn't they?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. I know, 12,000, something like that, maybe 20.
Wow, dude. And I imagine you had to put them back at your gaff or something.
Yeah, they had to be stored somewhere,
Yeah.
And then recycled. Then we sold them on to independent record stores, but
good idea.
Independent record stores, we're only going to take 1 or 2.
That's the problem.
And there's the other thing, of course, that we didn't take into account. Like I said, we didn't know what we were doing at all, and that is. Even if you invented Monopoly, nobody will buy Monopoly at any other time of the year apart from Christmas.
Sure.
So
It's very seasonal.
You've got like 20,000 of these games at the worst possible time of the year. But well, it was all kind of that kind of classic infamy. They've all got it infamy kind of phase.
Sure.
But, yeah.
And then, I mean, once the shops ban the game, then I'm sure they would even mention you in Parliament and.
Well, there was this MP, and he was a real pig, you know.
I was going to say his name, but we won't say his name now.
I don't know who he was. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, which kind of rounds it all back to what we were talking about at the beginning, really, and that is that. Well, actually, it's something that I think about the rave scene itself, is that it got assimilated. The whole of the rave scene. It was at the beginnings of this was just beginning to happen. The super clubs were just starting.
Sure, definitely.
But when the super clubs like Ministry of Sound and places like that started
Cream
yeah. But there's something which is very noticeably different. And that is that they were licensed.
Yeah, big difference.
Very, very, very big difference. And it basically wasn't the same scene at all, because what this game was about was all these kids descending on, you know, some open air venue, and, you know, the police standing back, kind of like watching them all, you know, enjoy themselves, drinking Lucasade and Ribena.
Yeah. Very true story.
But once the scene had been assimilated into the club scene, then, you know, everyone's in on the guest list anyway, pretty much. They make their money on the bar.
Yeah.
You know? And
for sure.
It was never really the same after that point. And then alongside the alcohol came cocaine.
Yeah.
You know,
the music changed as well. The music was a lot faster.
Yeah. So
so there were all these elements and all the parties, you know, I mean, this is why it went back into the clubs. So many of the parties were being stopped, and there were so many fake parties that were occurring, and unscrupulous promoters who were, you know, saying they had such and such 20k sound, lasers, this, that, and that. And when you arrive, they've got like a couple of fan lights and a disco lights or something like that.
Yeah.
And so
whoever happened to be
kind of
like cracking it into the charts, because the rave scene was, you know, was crossing over into the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Jimmy and Bill from the KLF pretty good, and the number of times that they saw flyers with the KLF, and they said, "Oh, we're playing there on Saturday." Yeah, I didn't know anything about that, you know, and that they infamously hardly ever did play anywhere. But
sure,
yeah.
And I've heard stories about the times when they did play somewhere, they went and got the money that they were being paid, and then they just threw it into the crowd. The money
they threw a whole load of money into the crowd. Yeah. Well, there's a card in the game actually. KLF throws $1,000 into the crowd.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So homage.
Just a minute. Got such a bad cold.
Sorry, mate. I won't keep you much longer, mate.
No, it's okay. So really, what I'm still looking at is the possibility of re-releasing it actually at some stage, but it's going to be a big job if you do it, because if I do re-release it, it's going to be interactive, and that means that there's going to be ways of playing online, you know, and that means making it future proof, and you know,
you're looking at a good few years graft.
Well, yeah, I just look back on that 1 year's graft. I've never worked so hard in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
You know, it was
Well, it's a huge
absolute.
achievement to get it to the market.
Well,
And
it
then to
was.
get it into WH Smiths and all of those stores. Like looking back at it today, people will probably say, well, hang on, mate. You had things that were called what do you call the E's?
Energy tokens. That's what
Yeah,
they're
you got
called.
your energy tokens. They actually have E on them.
Yeah, big.
You know, it's a rave game, and you got it into WH Smith. That's at
Yeah,
Woolworths. That's a
Woolworths.
massive achievement, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, Virgin, we all know Richard, you know, so
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. You kind of
WH Smith.
Virgin's a kind of a music. Virgin's a music store. You know, I mean that's anything controversial is going to sell.
Yeah,
You know.
totally.
Hold on. See if I've got the offending articles. Here we go. If you can see the E to hold it in a certain kind of light.
Yeah.
Oh, you can just about see it. Yeah, there you go. Energy token. Yeah, so that was it. Infamy, as I
So they were
said.
definitely risky.
Huh?
It was definitely risky.
Well, we didn't. You know, the thing is that it really was such a game, and it's such a drag, really, that. Well, it's like what's his name, David Nutt said. You know, he said, no one's worked closer with the government than I have. I know the way the government works, and I can tell you in this country, they're just not geared up for this kind of thing, which is a shame because we all look back. I mean, it was horrifying at the time. Layer bets. It was a complete horror. People were kind of like, it was all being peddled like, kids dicing with death,
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't the first death either. I mean, my friend died in 1988.
Really?
Yeah, he was my school friend.
Really?
I mean, I've spoken about it in other podcasts, and we didn't even for a second stop to think that we're not going to take it anymore. You know, we planned the following weekend, we planned on taking it in his name.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And that's just the reality of it, you know, and that's what we did. And we did a Genesis party, and we had his name up in lasers, and so we didn't even for a minute think about not taking it. But obviously, this is long before the Leah Betts thing.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny because I look on the desk here just as we're talking, but actually, my kind of like big dream for the Rave game, when it comes down to it, is I had to deal with this whole illegal drug thing, and I came up with an idea for setting it in the future. So if it was in the future, it would be an illegal something or the other, but it wouldn't be a drug, as we call it. It was suddenly, if it was set in a science fiction context, suddenly you could be, as risque as you wanted. And
limitless. You could, like you said, as long as it's not called EMDMA.
Movies about people taking drugs in the future. It's not promoting drugs; it's promoting some science fiction.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did a master's, an MA, based around this concept, and I just saw this picture. It's just on my. I just noticed all these little notifications are coming up. And here's a picture of me when I received my master's, and look carefully at the face. I was on an E at the time.
Oh, God. Oh, shit.
Grinning from ear to ear. So there you go. Yeah. So.
Absolute classic photograph, mate.
Yeah. So I've got another one like that, actually, which I've actually replaced the eyes with like smiley eyes and a big grin. It looks pretty much satanic.
Quite Excellent.
Anyway, that's about as much of a potted history as I can possibly kind of
Sure, mate.
But,
Well, it's been interesting, mate. It's been interesting. There's so much current interest in the game. All people that collect flyers and stuff, they all want a copy of the game, basically. How many
yeah.
would you say that you produced in the end?
20,000. And then there was the extra lot.
So there's about 25,000, would you say?
Yeah, something like that. 25,000.
Between 20 and 25,000 Rave board games out there in the world.
Not now. I mean, no, board games are, they've become collectible, but by dint of the fact that, they're made of cardboard and they're so easily screwed up. People that do
but a
take
lot of
care
time,
of.
yes, well, I think a lot of these lot though who are buying them, they're not playing them.
No,
as you said, they're collecting them.
Yeah,
they're like, I'm going to give this to my kids.
Yeah, that's a nice.
Yeah,
thought.
that's what a few people have said to me. I'm giving this to my kids.
Yeah. Well, there is a
Go
copy
on.
of the V&A.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. And they've got a copy of my book, Class of '88. They put it in a time capsule beneath Museum of London.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was like in 1999, and I think, and it was for like 100 years. So
Wow.
long after I've gone, they're going to dig up my book and be like, "Oh, seemed like they had a good time back then."
Cool. Yeah. Cool.
But
well, I've got cold. I'm going to sneeze. Yeah, I mean, if there's any good developers out there, game developers and webby type coders and all the rest of it, I'm interested in talking to you because of the whole, what's likely to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years, then this is the time to go for it.
Sure, and with any luck, there's someone out there with a bit of tech that just need a nice little project to actually, proof of concept.
Yeah, people that can kind of do the kind of magic, with code, would be able to, play the game as a board game, but also have it kind of working across the internet as well. That's what I want to do.
I'm sure there'd be someone out there. Did you see on I can't remember what the name of the website is, but someone has put like this TB303 machine.
Oh yeah,
online, and you can actually play it online.
Oh yeah,
literally through a web browser.
Yeah. There's
pretty cool.
Quite a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I'm sure there'd be someone. I'm sure there'd be someone that have a bright idea, and it'll probably be someone from that generation who's a coder now.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I like that.
Yeah.
But look, I'm going to let you go, Patrick, because
all right,
mate, I know you've really, honestly, you've done us proud, mate. We know you've got a cold, and so I honestly appreciate you being here and sharing these stories, because I really feel like your story is really important. It's a big part of the history, and it was showing you that people were trying to do other things outside of raves, clubs, making music, but people are actually there making board games. So you actually achieved it, and you got it in all of those big time stores, mate. So we've got to take our hat off to you, mate.
Yeah. Goes to show that people weren't taking themselves too seriously.
Exactly. They're still fun times. Yeah. And as Patrick said, if there are any developers out there, any coders, or anyone that has any idea of how to take this forward into the future so it's future proof, then get in contact. We'll have Patrick's web links. They'll be on the show notes on the website. So you'll be able to get in contact with Patrick. If you can't get in contact with Patrick, you can always shout me and I'll pass the messages on.
Okay, great.
And so once again,
there's a Facebook group, so a Facebook page. Oh, there's another story. Facebook is like they're today's police, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah, constantly, getting blocked and banned by Facebook. So, yeah.
And when I tell people that I've had terrible experiences with Facebook, and instantly people automatically think I've done something bad. They're like, "Yeah, what did you do? You must have done something bad." I'm like, "No, I haven't done anything."
Yeah.
Like, well, you must have done something. Like, no, I haven't done anything.
Oh,
I haven't posted dodgy content.
I had a ban,
nothing.
30-day ban just 2 days ago, which is it didn't take long for them to realise that they completely cocked it up. But actually, I'll finish on one for a final kind of note on Facebook. Basically, the Rave game on Facebook, what I have always used it for, I just put music, like YouTube's in there. And it's a page because it's for a product. In some ways, it should have been a group. But I thought, no, it's for a product. The product doesn't exist anymore. The product was only available for about 6 weeks, like 30 years ago or something.
Wow, 6 weeks, dude.
Yeah.
Nuts, mate. That's nuts.
Then I get these kind of like bans from Facebook saying, they don't give you any warning either. Basically, that you've been promoting this fictional product too much. And then I would post on the actual Facebook page. That's what I used to do. Big picture of Mark Zuckerberg or something. Like, it's a lock-in. That we've got a 2-week block on. It's a lock-in from now on, and they would just play loads and loads of music, and then they would come up and they would say, "This is one of your most successful posts ever. Pay us £50 and we will promote it." And then I would take a screenshot of it and say, "Isn't it rich? We've just said that these bastards have blocked us, and they've now told us that our post that these bastards have blocked us is the most successful post ever. And if we pay them, that it's
outrageous.
It's total nonsense, really."
Outrageous,
anyway,
mate. Outrageous. The last time they locked me out, they said, "Send me all your ID." I sent them all my ID, passport, everything that I had. And they said no. What do you mean no? They said no, it's not good enough. So, well, but anyway, that's another story. Patrick, hopefully someone will come up and someone will be able to help you to get that game back on the road, mate.
Cool.
But again, thanks for coming, mate. Loads of love. And hopefully I'll speak to you very, very soon. We'll have a Guinness or something.
All right.
Get well soon, Patrick, mate.
All right.
Take care, brother. Take care, mate. See you, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, mate.
This is the 88 Podcast with yours truly, Wayne Anthony. This is the 88 Podcast with yours truly, Wayne Anthony.
Live hopefully in 1988 and have a great 88.
Music and culture, the 88 Podcast with yours truly, Wayne Anthony.